Howdy, my totally as always Tubular gamers, and we're back with another ranking video, and we got another retro ranking video for you today. We got another N64 ranking. Today we're going to be ranking every Mario game for the Nintendo 64. Now the Nintendo 64 is no stranger to great games and no stranger to great Mario games. Mario has had plenty of amazing games on the Nintendo 64. Obviously Mario's had great games on every console, but there's just something about the Nintendo 64 where Mario games hit different. This was the first time Mario really was 3D, and he got a bunch of great games, not only a mainline 3D platformer, but a bunch of amazing spin-offs. And so today I thought I would have the unenviable task of ranking every single Mario game for the N64. Now, I'll be ranking these games based off quality, how well they've aged, etc. But I'll be real, a lot of it's going to be all about my nostalgia, my memories, and how fond I am of the game, as I imagine most people's lists will look like. Now, a list like this, with so many classic, amazing games, there's bound to be a bunch of people who disagree with me. They'll probably have some hot takes in here, so you let me know down below, and you can tell me how I'm wrong, or you agree with me, or I'm an idiot, or whatever it is. I love to read all comments, so like, share, comment, sub, all that good stuff. Now, I'll put a few ground rules out. We're not going to be including Yoshi's Story. That's a Yoshi game. No Donkey Kong 64 or Diddy Kong Racing. Those are Donkey Kong games. Mario Paint's not on here since it's Japanese only. And no Super Smash Bros. I'm looking at games where Mario's the main star and his name is in the title. But with that out of the way, let's get to the list. So Mario didn't have any bad games on the 64. He just straight up didn't have any bad games on the 64. But what do I feel is the weakest Mario game on the N64? And so here we have Mario Tennis on the N64, developed by Camelot and releasing in 2000 as one of the last N64 games. Now, Mario Tennis is a pretty long-running Mario sports series, and this was really the first modern incarnation of the series. This game is also the game that introduced one of the weirdest characters to the Mario series, Waluigi, as well as the reintroduction of Birdo and Princess Daisy. And you know, coming back to this game all these years later, this is still a pretty solid tennis game. Obviously, this game isn't realistic like Sega Virtua Tennis, it's much more arcade, but I also think it's a lot more fun. There's a lot of different shots you can do, like a lob, a drop shot, a smash shot, and the control scheme is relatively simple to understand. It's one of those easy to pick up and play, but kind of hard to master. I think later Mario Tennis games would really understand the whole pick up and play versus mastering aspect, but it really did get started here, and it's fun to see where the series' roots are. Now, I personally don't love tennis, just never been a huge fan, but even I can admit this game is still pretty fun even nowadays. There isn't a ton of content to it, it's mostly just tournaments, and then there's some multiplayer, and you can mix things up in the multiplayer. I've definitely had some fun memories in the multiplayer, but not as much as, say, other Mario N64 games. And despite playing pretty arcade, the game doesn't really have all that much of a Mario flair outside of the characters. Like, the only stage I can think of that really does anything different is the Bowser stage, complete with Mario Kart items, and I wish that the game definitely leaned more on its Mario roots and just decided to go kind of balls to the walls. You know, like the later Mario Tennis games, but that's hindsight, and I mean, they obviously didn't have that back when the game was released. When the game was released, it was probably one of the best tennis games ever made. It's one of the best looking N64 games, which is already a huge plus, and the music is just delightful. The original version of the game actually used the transfer pack with the Game Boy Color version of Mario Tennis, and you could import your characters and all of that fun stuff. The game's been re-released numerous times, and this was definitely taken out of, but still a cool fact nonetheless, and I have no problem saying that if you're looking for just a fun old tennis game, this is probably one of the best ones you can do. It's aged much better than some of the other Virtua Tennis games. Hey, you know, at least I can give it this. It's the best tennis game on the N64. Not even close. And so here we have Dr. Mario 64, developed by Nintendo and released for the 64 in 2001. Now, Dr. Mario 64, if you've played Dr. Mario before, you'll be able to play this game just fine, as it's low-key just an enhanced remake of the original Dr. Mario for NES and Game Boy. And it's based around, you know, Dr. Mario, and also characters from Wario Land 3, interestingly enough. And yes, this game still has that awesome tile-matching action puzzle gameplay that Dr. Mario is known for. This was definitely before it was getting stale when they just started re-releasing it over and over, but I digress. The game is still pretty fun. There's a number of different modes here. There's, you know, the regular Dr. Mario setup where you just want to go as long as you can, take out all the viruses. There's an actual story mode where you can play as either Dr. Mario or Wario to track down the stolen Mega Vitamins, and you just battle CPUs basically. You can just battle a regular CPU, there's flash mode, there's a marathon mode, and there's even a score attack. And you know, it's pretty cool to see all these modes in a Dr. Mario game. This is like the most modes of any Dr. Mario game, and I think the gameplay is more than solid enough. The presentation is pretty decent. It actually uses sprites. It's one of the rare games on 64 to use sprites. I think it looks nice. The music, again, is pretty solid. A lot of it's just remixes of old tracks, but I think the music is good. I've had the most fun with this game in the multiplayer. I've played a number of multiplayer matches, and it's always a decently fun time. I'd rather play this game more than Pokemon Puzzle League, which is probably this game's main competitor. And I think if you're looking for more than a solid enough puzzle game on the 64, you really can't go wrong with Dr. Mario 64. You really just can't go wrong with Dr. Mario in general. And so here we have Mario Golf, developed by Camelot and released on the 64 in '99. Now, Mario Golf 64 is without a doubt one of the better Mario Golf games. Has this game aged? Absolutely, it's aged. But is it still fun? Yes, I think it's still fun. This was really the first of the Mario Golf games to modernize Mario Golf and what it would be in the future, as in, you know, using 3D computer graphics. Now, when it comes to the actual golfing itself, is it less than ideal in the 2020s? Yeah, it has aged in that aspect, and it can feel a bit rough at times, but the game is probably the most realistic Mario Golf game like ever made. It actually takes golf pretty seriously, all things considered, and it's easily the closest to a simulator that this series has ever gotten. It isn't as wacky as the other games. All the environments are pretty standard, and again, it is quite serious with its golfing mechanics. As a kid, this game absolutely crushed me. Like, it just grinded me to dust because I'm not the best at golf games. As a kid, I was terrible at golf games. And this game can just be absolutely ruthless at times. Like, it has no problem just kicking you to the curb with how difficult it can be. Whether it's taking wind into account or if you hit your ball into the rough, like, you can just be completely screwed where you gotta just start the hole over. This game was so ruthless, it even makes you unlock everyone. You have to unlock legit everything, every course, and just about every character. You don't even start with Mario in Mario Golf. Like, this game was not messing around. You gotta unlock, like, everything, and, you know, it was somewhat satisfying unlocking everything as a kid, but again, it just totally crushed me, and I remember just getting really mad as a kid. At least the game is consistent with its challenge across its many modes. It has like a ring mode, and then this game also has a mini golf mode. It's the only Mario Golf game with a mini golf mode, which is interesting. I don't know why they never brought it back. Would I ever come back to this game by myself these days? Absolutely not. This game is going to fuck me up. It is going to crush me. It is going to remind me that I am not that great at golf games. But I would come back to this game for multiplayer. I've come back a few times in the last couple of years for the multiplayer, and it's always been a good time. Just seeing my friends and I just totally suck at golf in comparison to how good this game wants you to be. And it seriously pissed off my 11-year-old self. Like, I didn't even know any cuss words, but I was ready to scream all of them at this game. Either way, though, this game is still pretty fun. It's, again, very challenging and unforgiving, but it's one of the better Mario Golf games, and it's easily the best golf game on 64. And so here we have it, the original Mario Party, developed by Hudson Soft and released on the 64 in '99. This would be the start of the gargantuan series known as Mario Party, and you know, this original game, they really did establish just about everything that would be a staple of the series going forward. It's actually really impressive how if you come back to this original game all these years later and you've only ever played like the later Mario Party games, you're still gonna totally understand how to play this game, and it doesn't do anything all that crazy. Sure, in the 2020s it can feel a little barren, especially compared to some of the later Mario Party games, but I think this game's fun factor and the fact that it basically created everything from scratch really does help it out and give it some extra novelty points. The gameplay is pretty simple. You pick one of the 6 characters, Mario, Luigi, Peach, Yoshi, Wario, and Donkey Kong, and you get onto a map and play Mario Party. All of the maps are based off of our characters, so there's Mario's Rainbow Castle, Luigi's Engine Room, Wario's Battle Mountain, DK's Jungle, Peach's Cake, and Yoshi's Island, my personal favorite. and each map looks incredibly different from the last. I like how it's like a pre-rendered background and then your 3D characters looking around. It's very 90s, and I actually really do like this aesthetic. I like how this game looks, and each board has really nice music. In fact, I'll just go out of my way to say the music in the original Mario Party slaps. Like, it is some of the best that the series has ever had. I love the original music. And yeah, then you just play Mario Party. A lot of the tropes of Mario Party were really established in this original game. You roll the dice block, you move across the board, you play a mini game after every turn. There's a bunch of unique spaces here like question marks, Bowser spaces, chance time. And the goal is to just get enough coins to then get some stars. And of course, there's a bunch of chaos and madness that happens along the way, and your friends might not be your friends by the end of it. Your family members might not even be your family members by the end of it. The original Mario Party is really good at pitting players against each other and making them want to kill each other. And not only thanks to chance time, but this game really just loves to, again, just really make the players go at each other, much more so than maybe any other Mario Party game. Like, this game is just ruthless with what it'll do. It'll take all your coins, it'll take all your stars, it'll swap the coins, the stars with other players, it'll move it all around the players. Like, the game really does not give a shit. The game has no pity, and it has no mercy coins or stars here either. The game just has no problem telling everybody that they're all losers. Which, you know, in this day and age, it's definitely a welcome change to see a game be actually so relentless. Even in the Mario Party series itself, it's a nice change to see one of these games be relentless. But I think that it's still incredibly fun. Like, yeah, it's going to take a hot minute for you to get used to the fact that the game really does not care if you win or lose. And it has no problem just throwing luck into the equation and being like, oh, well, you didn't get lucky, screw you, you lose now. And it happened to me plenty of times. It's happened to my friends plenty of times. I've been playing this game for like 10 plus 20 plus years now at this point. It always happens where you can do really good like the entire game, and then just one turn some unlucky thing happens and you've lost. It's over. But that's also kind of just the appeal of the original Mario Party. Like, it's fun in that aspect. There's enough randomness to it that it keeps things totally interesting no matter what's going on. Somebody in last place can totally still win the game unless they're just leagues behind everybody, but almost everybody always has a chance. I really do love the boards in this game. Some of them, like Luigi's Engine Room, are ruthless, but I really do like the boards here. It's some of my favorite boards of the series. The mini games, there's a lot of classics here, a lot of great ones here. Some of them are not so great. The spinning, the analog stick ones in particular are never going to be fun, but enough of the mini games are great here. You can even play the mini games just by themselves. There's even like a single player mode that's centered around the mini games, but all these years later, I've just never really liked this and never really messed with it. But it's truly amazing how all these years later, there's just still so much fun playing this game with some friends or family members, and all of you just screaming at each other by the end of it. Like, that can't be created nowadays, honestly. There's just very few games that still have that magic, and the original Mario Party, the original game, still has it, and so major props there. I love the original Mario Party, and if you haven't played it and you like Mario Party, I do recommend you give it a shot. It is on the Nintendo Switch Online nowadays. Alright, and so here we have Mario Party 3, which came out in 2001. Now, over the years, I've been pretty back and forth on this game. You know, many years ago, I would say it's my least favorite of the N64 Mario Party games, but in recent years, I've really come around to it, and I think it's a bit underrated. So Mario Party 3's got a totally different story theme setup from the first two Mario Parties. It's about the Millennium Star. A bunch of our characters want to possess this Millennium Star that comes down onto Earth, and the only way to do so is, of course, by playing Mario Party. The Millennium Star actually replaces Toad as the host, along with this dice thing known as Tumble, and the story, you know what, it's fine enough for what it is. When it comes to this game's aesthetic, or just general theme, it tries to be like a toy box, where everything is pretty flat and childlike. And honestly, I could take it or leave it when it comes to this game's theme or aesthetic. I mean, it looks better than the first two games. They did update the graphics at least, but yeah, it was just kinda there. Now when it comes to playing Mario Party 3, if you played Mario Party 1 or 2, you're gonna immediately be familiar with how this game plays and its pacing, structure, etc. There's a couple different game modes, but the one most people play, at least the one I played the most of, is Battle Royale, and this has nothing to do with Fortnite or PUBG or Warzone. It is really just the standard Mario Party mode, where you choose one of 8 characters. Because this game added Daisy and Waluigi, you move across the board trying to get the stars, win the mini games. You know how Mario Party works, I don't need to explain it to you, right? It's the standard Mario Party gameplay you know and love that they would repeat for like 10 more games. Now when it comes to the boards in this game, I've been a bit hit or miss. Like, at first I didn't love these boards, but over the years I've come to enjoy them a bit more. I actually do like the forest map and the train map, and yeah, they've started to grow on me. There are some parts that feel pretty random, pretty bullshit, but I mean, that's relatively par for the course. I would say they're just about as good as like the first game's boards. Sure, they're not as memorable or iconic, but they're actually decently designed. Some of the gimmicks can really turn the entire game on its head, like the Mirage Star gimmick where everything can change. This game also has items like the other Mario Parties, and this was the first Mario Party where you could hold more than one item, and so they introduced a bunch of new items here, and these, yeah, I'm a bit hit and miss on, but for the most part I think they are pretty good. The board gameplay is actually quite solid. When it comes to the mini games, almost all of them are new versus Mario Party 2 repeating a lot of the first games, and I think these are some of the best mini games of the N64 trilogy. There's a lot of great ones here, a lot of classics. And sure, a lot of the mini games are not as memorable or iconic as the first or second game's mini games, but when it comes to the quality, it's pretty good here, I can't deny it. So there are two main other modes outside of the Battle Royale mode here. There's the dual mode and a story mode. Yes, this game is like a full-on single-player story mode. And yeah, I've never played much of this. I mean, I tried a little bit of it and was like, it's just really not for me. Mario Party single player has just never been one of my strongest suits, and this game, it didn't grab me. When it comes to the dual mode, this is actually pretty interesting. No other Mario Party game is anything like this, where you actually get to select partners to move around on the board with you. It's 1 versus 1, and the partners do attack each other and take each other's health, and the partners are just regular Mario enemies, which is pretty cool. And it can lead to actually pretty different gameplay from what you usually get in a Mario Party game. It's a nice distraction. I've tried it with friends throughout the years, and yeah, at the end of the day, we really did just go back to the party mode. I'm sorry, the Battle Royale mode, but it's interesting to say the least. It's something different. I can give them that. They tried something different. And I kind of feel that with a lot of Mario Party 3, like they did actually try to do something different. Sure, it's not all that different from the other Mario Party games, and it still follows the general formula, but it doesn't feel like they just rehashed 1 and 2, which is something I can appreciate. I mean, they even made the game look better, and the music is still pretty good. All in all, if you like Mario Party, especially the N64 Mario Party games, you really shouldn't miss out on this one. It's way better than you remember or realize. Like, I genuinely do think this game is actually pretty underrated, and while it's not my absolute favorite Mario Party game, I still would say it's one of the better ones, and yeah, it's worth your time if you're looking for a fun party game. And so here we have Mario Kart 64, developed for the 64 and released in 1997. Now, while Super Mario Kart was the first Mario Kart, it really was Mario Kart 64 that blasted the series into the stratosphere, into the legendary status that it's at now, where I have endless memories with this game, whether it's with friends, fam, partner, whoever, dog even, like endless memories with Mario Kart 64, thanks to its amazing courses and expanded battle mode. It was actually in 3D here, and it's really just legendary course after legendary course. There was a couple different modes here, like you had the regular mode, the Grand Prix, where you could do 50, 100, 150cc, or even the mirror mode, and then of course the awesome multiplayer where you had the battle mode, you could race against each other. There's even a time trial mode. And you know, we take all this stuff pretty for granted nowadays, but back in the N64 eras, this was still a bit of a novelty, and even nowadays, it's still really fun. I think Mario Kart 64 has aged better than the Super Nintendo game by quite a landslide. There were so many amazing tracks here that all got started here. The Mario Circuit on 64, DK's Jungle, Toad's Turnpike, Royal Raceway, the N64 Rainbow Road. Like, come on, we could be here all day ranking these tracks by themselves because there's so many good tracks in Mario Kart 64, and it's really like this game's biggest strength is just how good the tracks are, because it's led to just so much fun. And of course, the game, you know, it's gonna always have its Mario Kart moments. The blue shell is here, but I think the balancing was much more in line with what we expect nowadays Mario Kart balancing to be, much more so than the Super Nintendo game. The reason it's not higher on the list is it does feel a bit clunky to come back to. It's definitely aged in that sense. I think that the controls are a bit clunky. They take some time to get used to. Turning is much better than drifting. I've always thought the drifting is just really whack in this game and never been very good. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe that's a hot take, I don't think so. Like, I just think the drifting sucks in this game. But you know what doesn't suck is the game's presentation and the music, both of which are just legendary. The music in particular is just fantastic here. Mario Kart 64 is easily one of the best racers on the 64, and there are so many good racers on the 64, but it still is really a fun time even nowadays that I have no problem saying absolutely try if you haven't tried. Alright, and here we have maybe the GOAT of Mario Party. We have Mario Party 2, released for the 64 in 2000, developed by Hudson Soft. Mario Party 2 really looked at the original Mario Party and just said, how do we add more? How do we make it more fun? How do we make it more chaotic? And I think they absolutely did that. You know, all these years later, after playing like every Mario Party game, I still think Mario Party 2 really is the best. I think the series just peaked, and I think that no other Mario Party just hit the same way that Mario Party 2 did. Others have been close. There's been plenty of close times they've hit, but nothing like Mario Party 2. The gameplay wasn't even all that different from Mario Party 1. It still goes up to 4 players. You choose between the 6 same characters that you had in the first game. You get on a board and you play some Mario Party. You roll the dice, you move around the board, you play some mini games, you're trying to get the stars. There's a bunch of different spaces you can land on that can heavily affect your game like that. And one of the reasons I think that this game is the best of the Mario Party series is not only for its minigame collection, but the boards and personality. There are 6 boards here, and they all have their own distinct theme, and these are all really fun themes. There's like a fantasy one, a cowboy one, a space one, an explorer one, and then of course, you know, a Bowser one. But I've always really loved the boards here. I really do love the themes. I think it's actually pretty cute how they all dress up still for these boards. I think that the way they are designed is actually pretty good, and I actually really do like the gimmicks on these boards, more so than most of the other Mario Party games. Yeah, it's got 6 boards, and they're not the most unique when it comes to their design compared to maybe some of the later ones that get crazier, but I think these are all really solid boards and are some of the best boards that the series has ever seen. And I think that they got some of the best music that the Mario Party series has ever seen, but that might be just me. Do love the music, and I like the presentation as well. Yeah, it's basically the same as the first game, but I still like it. The mini games are also really fun. The game has 65 mini games. A number of them return from the original, but honestly, I thought they picked like some of the best games from the original Mario Party to have a return, and I think like all of the new ones here, they're all pretty great. I would say that almost every mini game is a banger here. And like the first game, there is a minigame mode, but I mean, I think it's best on the boards. There's even a single player minigame mode, and I've just really never cared about this one either. But I've had a blast with the mini games in this game. I really think that this game also cranks the randomness up to just ridiculous levels at times, where it can just throw in the most random stuff. You'll land on a chance time and the whole game is now completely different. And the first game had that too, but I feel like this game just ups it a little more with its maps on the randomness, and in a good way. Not like where it's just too crazy like say Mario Party 3, and I think it really just hits that perfect balance. Maybe it's just some nostalgia talking here, but I really do think that Mario Party 2 is like the best of the whole series. And if you claim to like Mario Party and you haven't played Mario Party 2, I'm just shaking my damn head at you. That's all I'm doing, is I'm shaking my head. You should go play it. Alright, and so here we have the original Paper Mario, developed by Intelligent Systems and released on the 64 in 2001. This really was the start to the now iconic Paper Mario series. Now, this game really looked at Super Mario RPG for the Super Nintendo and just kind of almost evolved the series from there with a very unique paper aesthetic, so everything was 2D, and the game would actively acknowledge that it was paper as well. I thought it was decently novel and unique for the time to have 2D characters on a 3D plane. The plot is pretty simple. It's in the Mushroom Kingdom, and it sees Mario trying to rescue Peach from Bowser, who's imprisoned the 7 star spirits and lifted her castle into the sky. The story's nothing crazy, it's nothing you haven't seen before from a Mario game, if not dozens of Mario games at this point, but the way the game is executed is actually a bit different. Like, having to get the star spirits I think is a nice twist on things, and I think the writing actually really makes up for this game's somewhat basic plot, as I think the writing and the characters are all actually really good and some of the best that the Paper Mario series has ever seen. In fact, I would just argue that it's some of the best that Mario RPGs have ever seen. Some of the characters are great in this game. I really did like the writing. Even from this original game, there's always been a sense of personality and humor with the writing, and a lot of games, especially at the time, didn't have anything near that, let alone in an RPG, and so it was refreshing to see then. It's still refreshing to see nowadays, and it's great to see that even nowadays, that sense of humor, it's still in Paper Mario. So nice aesthetics, music, writing, and story aside, the game plays like a pretty standard RPG for the most part, with a nice Mario flair. You have 2 parts to the gameplay where you're walking around exploring the environment. You're talking to NPCs, you're interacting with Mario's various partners he gets throughout the game, you're jumping a bit, and you're solving the basic puzzle. Progression really is tied to the game's story and just moving on to the next area. And then you have the battles, which is the other big aspect of this game. The battles are where things are definitely more Mario-ized, where all the moves are centered around Mario. You can use the hammer, you can jump on enemies, and then of course you have some special abilities, but you interact with the game as you're doing the battles. So you gotta time your button presses, sometimes you gotta button mash. And really what this does, it allows you to stay very engaged with the turn-based gameplay, and Super Mario RPG did this as well. I think this game might even do it better. I think it really still does keep you engaged, and even nowadays, it's still really fun. Like, even the most basic enemies that you have no problem defeating, you'll still want to time those button attacks, and you'll still want to do as best as you can. And then you can even get some really good timing to avoid, like, getting hit altogether and minimizing your damage by blocking. I think it's actually really cool, and it's a really great system that, again, it makes you actually interested in the gameplay and what's going on at all times. A big part of this game is the partners. They all have unique abilities, and no two partners are the same. Obviously, this would be expanded on in the next game, but I still think it's actually pretty cool here, and having Mario's partners are great. I actually really do like the partners, not just because of their writing and design, but I do like having them here. I like everything that they generally do. And then as you defeat enemies, you level up, and you use these level ups to either upgrade your flower points, which is basically your mana, your HP, which is your HP, or your badge points, as across the game you find tons of badges you can equip, and these can give you buffs, debuffs, and even extra attacks that you will use with the flower points. And I really think that this is a great system. The game has a pretty good length to it also, taking well over like 20 hours on your first playthrough, and it's not a forgettable experience either. I know that it might seem like, oh, it's just another Mario RPG nowadays. No, this game is a classic for a reason. I would rank it as one of my favorite Mario RPGs because I think it is just a really great time. And yeah, it might have a somewhat basic plot, but I think it more than makes up for it with the writing, the humor, the dialogue, the characters, the general gameplay, the aesthetic, the music. All of that just really makes it come together to be just a great RPG. I think it's the best RPG on the 64, you know, because that's saying a lot. And I have no problem recommending this game to fans of the genre or Mario. It is also on the Nintendo Switch. And here in the top spot we have Super Mario 64. Is that really even a surprise that the best Mario game on the 64 is Super Mario 64? Probably not, but to me it's the best game, not only on the 64 with Mario in it, but it's one of Mario's best games like ever. This game is just absolutely goated, legendary, you name it, this game has it. It's just a fantastic game overall, and it's easily one of the very greatest games ever made. Not only because it's so revolutionary and innovative for gaming at the time, but it still holds up, it's still incredibly fun, and it just is a great time. It is one of those unforgettable must-play experiences that I think anybody who enjoys video games needs to try at some point, because it's just that amazing of a game. The story was as basic as it gets. Peach is kidnapped and Mario has to go save her and defeat Bowser. That's all there was to it. It was how the game went across its gameplay. It was the first 3D Mario game, one of the first 3D games ever. It was no longer about going point A to B, it was being dropped into these rather large worlds and just kind of exploring and collecting these power stars, and there are so many unforgettable worlds in this, not just Bomb Battlefield or the Snowy Mountaintop, but I would argue like every world is just unforgettable here, and I really do love all of them, even the later ones like Tick-Tock Clock and Rainbow Cruise. Obviously some of them I love more than others, but they're all good, and getting almost every power star is at least pretty good in this game. Obviously the 100 coin missions can just go away, but other than that, I think seriously, almost all of them are great. The controls are still really good, or about as good as they're going to get for an N64 controller. Sure, it hasn't aged the best in some ways, like flying around is pretty clunky, and the camera can be a bit of a pain in the ass, but you also got to remember what you're playing. And I mean, with that in mind, it's just one of the best 3D platformers ever. It's one of the best collectathons ever. And again, it's one of the best games ever. You could go on and on and on about how this game's amazing forever. There's plenty of video essays that are hours long at this point that have gone on and on. The presentation was great for the time. The music is just legendary. It's iconic. This game is iconic. Like, everything about this game is iconic. And it's, in my opinion, maybe the best N64 game like ever made. Like, it just never got any better than the first game, I guess. Ocarina of Time, it's also a really good one, but I just really do love Mario 64. I mean, what do I even have left to say that hasn't already been said? It's Super Mario 64. I'm going to leave it at that. If you made it to this part of the video, comment bricks as in what you used to put a house together. Shout out to my one Patreon. I appreciate you, dude. That's it for this video. Like, share, sub, all that good stuff. And I'll talk to everybody later. So see ya. Have a good one.